Alright, welcome back. We are going to talk about creating selections, adding to selections, and subtracting from selections using the layer panel today. And we have been talking about creating selections, adding to selections, creating complex selections, and today I'll show you how you can load selections from the layers panel. Alright, the first thing we need to do is just create a very simple shape. And I'm going to drag a rectangle, I'll add to it, and then I'll subtract from it. Okay, so there's our selection. And we've talked about how you can load, save selections up under Select and come down here to Save. We're not going to do that this time. We are going to come over here into our layers, and I'm going to click on the main layer that has my image, and I'm just going to hit Command J. And that will duplicate our layer up to that, onto its own new layer. Alright? So now I'm going to create another shape here. So I make my selection, and now we want to subtract puzzle piece 1. I better come over here. I'm going to go ahead and name this. We'll call this P1. And now we have this selection, and I want to subtract P1. And if you've learned how to make selections in Photoshop over here in our layers, all we have to do is command click on these little thumbnails, and it gives us our selections. It loads that selection. So I'm holding down Command, Control on a PC, and I'm just clicking on that thumbnail. Okay. So I'll make my selection again. We want a rectangle. And now I want to subtract this shape, so I will Command. That's going to allow me to make the selection, and then just like we did on our drawing selections and adding to, we're going to subtract this layer. So I'm going to hold down Option, and you'll see over there in my layer how that hand turns into a minus. So I have the rectangular marching ants, and now I'm going to Option Command click on puzzle piece number 1. And then I'll hit Command J, and now you'll see that I have puzzle piece number 2 and puzzle piece number 1. And we'll name this P2. Alright? So let's try that again. I'm going to we'll turn off P2. Actually, we'll leave P2 on and turn P1 off. Okay? So now I'm going to make another selection, and let's just draw a circle. And we'll drag it up here, and then I'll add to that. Remember, we can hold down Shift to add a new section to that, and then I'll Option click to take away from that. So here's my selection for piece number 2. And now I want to subtract from piece number 3. I want to subtract piece number 2. So I'm going to come over here to my layers, and I'm going to hold down Command. We always have to hold down Command because that's what's going to allow us to select, and then I'll hold down Option. And now we see that we have subtracted. Now our marching ants are going around puzzle piece number 2, and we better do that on puzzle piece number 1. And a little bit of puzzle piece number 1 was in there. Okay? So There's puzzle piece number 1, puzzle piece number 2, and now our selection is going to be, hit Command J, and there's piece number 3. And we can do the same thing. We can not only subtract, but we can add. So if I wanted to add, and you're going to use this a lot when you're compositing, because you're going to want to combine layers, either selections of people or selections of shapes or selections of objects. You're going to want to combine those and maybe apply an adjustment layer. So if I command click on P3, I would hold down Shift and command click. You'll see that my hand up there turns into a plus sign, so that means I'm going to now add this selection of P2. So there's that combination. I will go ahead and add the selection of P1. And that's how we create selections working with our layers. Now, if I wanted to grab the intersection, we could do that as well. So if I load selection, so if I click on my marquee tool and I want to drag an ellipse, and now I want the intersection, this would be puzzle piece number 4, or this would be a shape. Now if I wanted the intersection of this selection and P3, that would be this shape right here. I would come over here and I'm going to hold down Command. We always want to hold down Command. And I'm going to add Option, would subtract, and if I add the Shift key as well, you'll see that my hand up there turns into an X. That's going to signal that I'm going to take the intersection, and I'll click on that, and you'll see now we have the intersection. And if I wanted to move this shape over here, and I wanted the intersection of this shape and piece number 2, I'd hold down Command, add Option, and add the Shift key, and click on that piece. And there's the intersection between my ellipse and piece number 2. Alright, so that's it. We can do it here in layers, and sometimes that's easier. One other thing, I forgot about this. We can also load these selections just by right-clicking. So if you wanted to select these, if we right-click and say Select Pixels, that will load this selection. So if I right-click, say Select Pixels, and then if I right, so I have puzzle piece number 1 selected. Actually, what I'll do is Command D, and I will drag a marquee. That'll be a little easier to see. So if I drag a marquee, so that's selected, and I wanted to subtract, I can come up here under puzzle piece number 2. I'll just right click and say subtract that transparency mask. Let's try it over here. So if I create a selection and I wanted to subtract puzzle piece number 3, I can come over here and just right click and say subtract transparency mask. And now I've got this rectangular marquee, which is what I had, this rectangular shape, minus puzzle piece number 3. And I could right click and say puzzle piece number 2 if that's in there, which it looks like it was, and I don't think puzzle piece number 1 affects that. So then I could come down here, click on my layer, Command J, click that, kick that up into its own little layer, and then turn the opacity up. So we can either Command click to load a selection, or we could right click and say Select Pixels. Alright, I think that's it for this tutorial. Have fun and really push your shapes on your puzzle pieces and have some fun. I will see you later.